committing long-term to Lamar, my favorite quarterback that's playing right now.
Everyone watching, Marcellus, woosah.
Don't do
because
that.
I'm going to say some truths that may concern you,
Uncomfortable?
that may hurt your feelings. Yes, there should be concerns about committing to Lamar long-term. Not because Lamar Jackson is not one of the most electrifying players in the National Football League. Not because Lamar Jackson is not one of the best passers outside the pocket a year ago. Not because Lamar Jackson is not the most prolific runner we've ever seen at the quarterback position. But the concerns should come because of the question, can you win with Lamar's style of play? Everybody lately I've seen compared to Lamar to Giannis, but you know me, I don't like to be lazy. I think about Lamar Jackson as I think about Russell Westbrook. Russell Westbrook will sell a ton of tickets. Russell Westbrook will be one of the most electrifying players year in and year out. Russell Westbrook will do things the game of basketball has never seen before. 3 consecutive seasons, averaging a triple-double over the course of the season. Russell Westbrook won an MVP. But is Russell Westbrook's style of play too limited to win a championship? That's the question. Lamar Jackson, a unanimous MVP. Do not take that away from him. I won't. But is Lamar Jackson's style of play too limited to win a championship? Marcellus, I got to look at you for this one. Because I came up finally. Every now and then, a stat is just a number, but sometimes a stat is a conversation. Sometimes a stat means everything. Big dog, I deduced this one with the help of the team. Mind blown. Marcellus, Lamar Jackson isn't a running quarterback. I'm not going to say that. But we've never seen, no, like I said, he's not a running quarterback. But we've never seen a quarterback who's a better runner than passer win a Super Bowl. Now, people bring up the likes of Steve Young. People bring up the likes of Russell Wilson. People bring up the likes of Aaron Rodgers. But let me give you the math to support the point.
Okay.
Russell Wilson, the year he won the Super Bowl, he ran the ball 6 times. He passed the ball 6 yards for every 1 rush. Steve Young, the year he won the Super Bowl, he passed the ball 13 yards for every 1 rushing yard. Aaron Rodgers, the year he won the Super Bowl, passed the ball 11 yards for every 1 rushing yard. Lamar Jackson, over his first 2 years, Marcellus, averages 2.4 passing yards for every 1 rushing yard. So we've never seen a quarterback win a Super Bowl who passes the ball for less than 6 yards per every rushing yard. So it's not a matter of my like and dislike for Lamar. It's not a matter of stereotyping that type of quarterback. It's not a matter of anything besides we've literally, in the modern football era, never seen a quarterback that plays the game like Lamar Jackson plays the game win a Super Bowl. So if you have concerns for winning Super Bowls, then you have to have concern about committing long-term.
No concerns.
Oh, come on,
just a concern with what I just heard from my co-host in terms of your take about Lamar Jackson, but no concern by the way he performs. Let me push back before I start to go my own direction.
Please push.
My pushback is when anyone uses, in historical context, the running quarterback.
Yes, sir.
You always have to start with the understanding that there was a limited quantity to even start
Absolutely
from.
right.
And you want to see the drastic difference. And I played through the 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s of football. I played football for 25 years. And I started when I was 7 years old, 6 years old in front of the house. And because of that limitation and that perception and that stigma, that there were guys that could play quarterback looking like us, that was switching positions, even had to leave the NFL. Warren Moon comes to mind. Just had to go elsewhere, exiled just to play the position. So when we get to the numbers that support passing quarterbacks and statues,
yes, sir,
always remember,
history
you're only dealing with this many mobile quarterbacks.
That is true.
So no wonder not many have won a Super Bowl, because you're only dealing with 7, it seems like, in history. Okay, now let me go in my direction. Boy, I love me some Lamar Jackson. And boy, I hate this misperception about him that he can't throw the football. Trivia. Who led the league in passing touchdowns last year?
Lamar Jackson.
No, you say Aaron Rodgers. Who you say? Say again.
Lamar Jackson.
Patrick Mahomes. No, come on. Say it.
You know the answer.
Oh! So check. I think I could throw the football. But this year, things regressed in some of the major statistical categories. We're right. Slightly. But here's some nuggets that should make you all understand that Lamar Jackson is not the issue in Baltimore. Quarterbacks with 25 touchdown passes and fewer than 10 interceptions each of the last 2 seasons. Tell me if they're good. Patrick Mahomes, Aaron Rodgers, Lamar Jackson. Oh, you waiting for more names? That's it. Woo! Let's talk about quarterbacks that win, since you say, well, they don't win or they can't win. Quarterback win percentage, minimum of 35 starts, so we want guys that qualify. Number 5, Joe Montana. Is he good? Number 4, Roger Staubach. Any good? Number 3, greatest quarterback of all time, Tom Brady. Number 2, Lamar Jackson, only trumped by slightly Patrick Mahomes. I could go nugget after nugget. The dude is in a situation where he doesn't have receivers. Hollywood, Marquise Brown, stop being Hollywood. Get to work. Like, you're good, you're not great, and you're certainly not good enough to make this group anything. How bad was the New England Patriots passing game this year? Dog, you had jokes on Cam Newton this year, and it hurt you to have those jokes.
I did.
And it hurt you to see him suffer. But you look at that situation, you think they were the worst? No. The wide receivers in Baltimore combined for fewer than 2,000 combined yards. Next closest was the Patriots. So as trashed as the Patriots passing game was, it was the Baltimore Ravens that were the worst. And you want to know why? It wasn't by talent. It wasn't by arm strength. It wasn't by accuracy. It was by limitation in the scheme and the playbook. We got to bring in Fox NFL analyst LaVar Arrington. LaVar, should the Ravens have concern about committing to my favorite quarterback long-term, Mr. Lamar Jackson?
No, they shouldn't have any concerns, and the only reason being is because he's your favorite quarterback. And I think that kind of makes it a simple argument, a discussion, because, as long as he's your favorite quarterback, Marcellus, it makes the argument worthwhile to say that Lamar Jackson's going to be the long-term solution. But seriously,
how do you feel?
Well, when I look at Lamar Jackson, I look at a coach saver. I look at a franchise deliverer. They have not won the Super Bowl, but yet Lamar Jackson has ultimately delivered this franchise back to prominence and away from mediocrity.
There you go.
All right?
Yeah.
So to me, when I look at Lamar Jackson, sure, they've come up short. We can pinpoint him not having enough weapons. We can pinpoint him finishing last in passing yards. We can pinpoint a lot of different things and look at it and say, in a microscope form and fashion, you can find concerns, but you can find concerns with anyone. And when you look at Lamar Jackson, the one thing that I'll say that to me is definitively the reason why you give him the contract and you don't look back on it, you don't second guess it, you believe it and you buy into it, is because of what I just said. You believe it and you buy into it. Lamar Jackson is a player that Baltimore, the players, the city, the coaches, the guy that had the shirt on, nobody cares, do better, right? They believe and they buy into Lamar Jackson. And sometimes you can put a price tag on the criticisms of what he may or may not do in the statistical categories, but some of those intangibles that you can't measure will be the very reasons why you got to pay him and make sure he's comfortable and confident in his role as the quarterback in the franchise of that team.
I'm not saying, fellas, you don't pay him. Let's get this unequivocally and explicitly. Pay the man. Pay the man.
Top dollar?
Pay him because he's earned it. But there's a difference between earning the money and rewarding the team for the money you're paid. See, he's earned the money. Get a man a check. He earned the money. But the issue and the question is, should you have concerns about doing it? I think you have to pay the man, but you should have concerns about doing it. If I'm not mistaken, let's go back again. I told you all about Russell Westbrook. He was the highest paid player in the NBA, at least for a season, if I'm not mistaken, because he filled up the seats in OKC. He was that highest paid dude. Let's also talk about the fact, because I brought up the parallel, I'm going to ride it home. Marcellus, you brought up Lamar Jackson, 35 passing touchdowns. He was very proficient and prolific as a passer last year. The question I have is, will he regress back to the mean? Russell Westbrook, he shot 34% from 3 the year he won MVP, but will he regress back to the mean? Pay Lamar Jackson, but when you're talking about concerns, if and when you do pay Lamar Jackson, which the Baltimore Ravens should, can you win it all with Lamar Jackson? That's the question. That's the concern. I'm going to go here, Marcellus and LaVar, if we may.
I knew it was coming. Here come the drums.
If how someone sees you impacts how they use you, then that still will impact you.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay?
That's right.
If how someone sees Lamar Jackson, so Marcellus, you bring up the fact of the Baltimore Ravens, they don't pass for a lot of yards. That's true, and that's correct. But that's probably because the Ravens don't or didn't see Lamar Jackson as a passer. So they don't necessarily use him as a passer, which is why the Ravens, for the last 3 years, lead the NFL in rushing, but are porous in passing statistics. How the Ravens see Lamar Jackson impacts how they use Lamar Jackson. So therefore, that will impact the success Lamar Jackson has. If Lamar Jackson's success is negatively influenced, then I have my concerns about committing to him. Not saying you shouldn't. I'm definitely not saying it's Lamar Jackson's fault, because it's not Lamar Jackson's fault that Greg Roman doesn't necessarily see him as a prolific passer. But if they're not going to use him as a prolific passer and thus they're not going to win, then you got to have concern.
Yeah, you know what? Kurt Warner talked about that, and he was pretty prophetic about it in terms of he was explaining his experience and was warning all other quarterbacks out there to not get caught up in that perception roller coaster. Because you remember Kurt Warner, MVP, St. Louis Rams, greatest show on turf. But a lot of people forget or have amnesia about the New York Giants and how they looked at him, and then they had to draft Eli Manning, and then all of a sudden Kurt Warner back in Arizona and riding that roller coaster back to that success level that he earned. And it's interesting that Lamar Jackson seems, at least in perception, to be on a smaller coaster than that, you know, in the little kiddie world over there, but still on a roller coaster in terms of how they're perceiving him. And I think it's very unfortunate. Aaron Rodgers comes to mind when I think about Lamar Jackson, as Lamar Jackson, who won't say this publicly, but I will say it for you. In my worst years is still some other quarterbacks' career years. Lamar Jackson this year in regression had 33 total touchdowns. Baker Mayfield is being lauded right now, certainly by my co-host and others, for having 27 total touchdowns. And he's had that twice, but that's been his ceiling. And Lamar Jackson won't say this, but, man, we need to know reality versus perception. The worst of Lamar Jackson in terms of impact, in terms of the scoreboard, in terms of effect, is still greater than some other quarterbacks that right now we're trying to celebrate. Lamar Jackson
90%.
has always improved. Be real. If you look at Lamar Jackson from his collegiate years, every single year you saw him improve in terms of completion percentage, passing yards, and just basically staying the same in yards attempt, touchdowns, etc. Winning the Heisman and then coming back and having Heisman numbers again, but the team lost more games. Therefore, he didn't get the Heisman in consecutive years. All that. Look, Eric DaCosta, I love you, big dog, and you said the right things. Lamar Jackson will get to work, and he will improve. But, hey, Eric, why don't you draft a receiver that works as well? Help your boy out a little bit.